Another sickening law was passed to the shock of all Ugandans. I mean, all moral voices gave their opinion. Religious leaders, traditional leaders, even the governor of Bank of Uganda said this is going to affect the economy, because Uganda is a country that relies largely on the money that comes from outside. The diaspora remits up to $2 billion annually. But because the project under General Museveni, the project is not Uganda, the project is Museveni and his family. The agenda is not to lead the country to a better place. The agenda is to keep power within the family at all costs. So, that being the way it ceases to be an issue of the National Unity Platform, the party that I lead. It's an issue of all Ugandans. And like I said, NUP is our electoral platform. This is a party, by the way, that we introduced only 1 month to the 2021 election. Why? Because all other opposition political parties had been paid and ordered by the regime to keep away from us, because we were seen as too radical and uncompromising, and our agenda was, and still is, removing the dictatorship and beginning a new democratic journey for our country, Uganda. That being the way it is, it becomes, as it has always been, a matter of the people of Uganda as a whole. When this silly law was being passed the day before yesterday, the National Unity Platform, under the able leadership of Right Honorable Joel Swenyoni, put up a moral case, because that's what we could do. But the people of Uganda had to stand firm, as they should, and as I'm confident will. I'll give you an example of the fight against slavery. While the moral white people were in Congress trying to make a case against slavery and asserting that slavery is immoral, the likes of Harriet Tubman on the plantation had to also put an effort and communicate to all and sundry that slavery is not only immoral, but it is dangerous. Therefore, while the NUP is making a political moral case, the people of Uganda must rise and free their country. They are like two wings of a bird. One cannot flap alone, it has to work in concert. I hope I communicate to you, my brother. And also to my brother, whose accent sounds like he comes from the ghetto. Thank you for that question. I can tell when I hear somebody speak and they want to speak slightly, say, oh, he's not only from Uganda, he's from the ghetto. I'm so proud to find you in the University of Michigan and keep representing the brother. How does the Moozi project pose a challenge to the transition? Is that what you were asking?
Not necessarily, but the approach to appointing people in most of these offices, but not just people, but people who...
As we remember the loved ones that we have lost to AIDS, we can't help but recognize the role our mothers, sisters, aunties, and grandmothers have played.
You see, that's a statement.
Yeah, so now, how does that present a challenge to the transition, and how does it inform the approach we take to remove the dictator?
Thank you very much. Now the two transitions, that in itself is actually a transition from Museveni to his son, who is effectively in charge. He recently appointed one of his friends, head of media center and government spokesperson. He had his birthday and he ordered the police, the military, border riders, taxi riders to show up and run a celebration of his birthday. And indeed, when you go to his tweet, he tweeted and said, "How come I did not see the former military commanders? Are you undermining me? Why didn't you show up to run and celebrate my birthday?" So that is a transition from Museveni to his son. It's a transition from a pseudo-democracy, from a facade of democracy, to a reign of terror. You saw that when he distinguished himself in terror abductions and extrajudicial killings through this election, abducting people, killing people, torturing people, his father, in response, awarded him with a medal. And in his statement, Museveni's statement, he thanked him for dealing with troublemakers during the elections period. This is the same person that threatened to raid Kenya, and the following day, he was promoted to 5-star general. This is the same person that after he tweeted the naked pictures of my bodyguard under torture, 2 days later, he was made Chief of Defense Forces. And he was made Chief of Defense Forces. Unlike other Chiefs of Defense Forces in the past, before he was made Chief of Defense Forces, Museveni signed an instrument that was to the effect that the powers of the Commander-in-Chief were transferred to the Chief of Defense Forces. 2 weeks later, he made his own son Chief of Defense Forces. So that is, by and large, a transition in itself. Is it the transition that Ugandans want? No. Is it the transition that we are going to stop? Yes. The transition that we want is a transition from absolute rule to democracy, from family rule to democratic rule. And we are going to achieve that by the grace of God.
Thank you very much. So Ugandans are some of the most prolific in terms of the use of social media, and I guess that is why the president's son tweets a lot. And if you go on social media, you see a lot of Ugandans using TikTok, Instagram, as well as Twitter or X to communicate ideas. So I want to know, to what extent have you and your group also been using these platforms to communicate with or to mobilize at the grassroots level?
Thank you very much. Yeah, Ugandans are using social media, and largely because it is the remaining medium of communication for Ugandans. Like all dictatorships, the media is completely usurped. Most, if not all, radio stations are controlled by the regime. Those that dared to challenge the regime have been either closed or completely incapacitated. Majority of the radio presenters are owned by military chiefs, regime operatives, ministers, name it. And others that used to speak out don't. For example, I am not hosted on any radio or TV station in Uganda. Never mind that my voice is the most heard and my cute face is the most seen. Why? Thanks to social media. Social media has always been our way out. And the regime has not taken this lightly. This started when I rose to the occasion and became member of parliament. The regime could not stop this message from going out. So what the regime did is that they introduced a tax on social media. Yes, the first in the world, social media tax. I and many of my friends went to prison for protesting against social media tax. No tax on the internet. You could buy your MBs, but you have to pay a tax to use Facebook or Twitter or WhatsApp or that. That did not work because the people of Uganda said, okay, we shall pay that tax, but we shall communicate. They started finding ways of going around it. The next step, and that was during the 2021 election, Facebook was the only way we were communicating. That was before the introduction of TikTok and others. Facebook was the most popular social media in Uganda. It was banned. So 6 years ago, Facebook is banned in Uganda. Why? Because it annoys General Museveni. That did not work either. Because, like I told you, Ugandans are largely young people, and with age comes with creativity. So Ugandans went around that ban, and we used VPN, and it works. So if you ever get your Facebook banned here, because it can, VPN did a good job for us. So when that, happened, General Museveni, using another member of parliament that poses to be an opposition member of parliament, introduced a law called the Computer Misuse Act. And under this law, many TikTokers, many Twips, and many bloggers are rotting in jail for communicating what the regime does not like. Never mind the fact that Museveni's son himself, who is the chief of defense forces, pictures people's wives and posts them naked. Pictures citizens and posts them naked. On a daily, he's posting unhinged stuff. But as you know, the law in Uganda is nothing more than the paper on which it's written. So yeah, while there are those challenges, one thing that I'm proud to say is that Ugandans are unrelenting. We are always creative. We are always dynamic. And we always go around these blockages like we have done to date. Thank you.
Yeah, there's a couple hands. Oh, yeah, somebody already has a microphone. Please go.
Oh,
yes.
Okay. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Hello. Thank you. My name is Eloise Salih. As an African, a Liberian, I'm from Liberia, West Africa. So when you talk about political violence, electoral violence, dictatorship, it's something I've experienced. When you talk about passion of the young people getting involved to seize the opportunity and get the movement for themselves to play a role in growing the state, I played that role in my younger years, growing up in Liberia. My parents didn't even know I was active in my country, advocating for change. One of my first protests was the last big protest that was heard in Liberia. Innocent, enthusiastic, energetic. I knew I wanted something different. But that difference didn't end well. Why it's true we protest for change. Came the Civil War. I think you heard of Liberia Civil War. Yeah. That didn't change anything in our country. Many of us lost loved ones. But I was fortunate to leave Liberia and come to the United States. Stay looking for that energy to fight for democracy. And living in the United States, my big brother and Moses can attest to that. I get in contact with my immigrants community, telling them to be active while you are away from home. Know your rights as an immigrant. Know who's representing you. vote, but still be connected to your country and people back home. And for that reason, I go back to Liberia every other year, join political party, advocate, and participate in election. But advocating now and leaning towards democracy is becoming so fearful, very fearful. And having worked and still working in one of the countries in the world that I have looked up to as the greatest democracy, and seeing that there's other things happening, my fear increases for people like you, activists in Africa, activists of political leaders in developing countries. So I have a question, and I try to write this question down because I want to be politically correct. A question for you, it says that when you look at the present trend on the global scene with democracy, you see how it's being attacked and it's eroding. And the key actor that's carrying on this attack comes from a nation that we look up to for democracy on our continent. Uganda be no exception. So I want to ask you, are you staying of the notion that democracy is universal? 1, 2, and are you willing to continue to put your life on the line for democracy in Uganda? That's my question. When you look at the global picture of how democracy is eroding now, that's the question I have for you.
If you permit me immediately respond to my sister here. Yeah, what's my view on the global trend of democracy universal, and how do I look at it? Man, oh man, I'm glad you said you want to be politically correct. I don't want to be I hate being politically correct, but I'll be cautious. Because I'm a refugee here now. And I'm not messing with you guys. But a while ago I told you Americans that democracy, however old it is always one step away from extinction. So guard it with your life. Yeah, I mean, Liberia, at least you've been there. You've had people like Charles Taylor, and at least you are an example. You had Africa's first female president, and you have had the opportunity of voting in and out presidents, including the famous George Weah and all that. We envy you, man. You're not where you're supposed to be, but you're certainly where we would love to at least reach in our lifetime, to be able to choose our own leaders, to see our vote counting. We don't have a vote in Uganda. We want to have a vote. We have been independent for 63 years, since 1962. But not one president has been elected to power. They shoot their way in and they're shot out of power. We want to see an elected president by the people of Uganda in our lifetime. You mentioned it that many times it gets dangerous. Yes, it gets dangerous. Many people, many of our brothers and sisters, we don't know where they are. They don't even have brains. But they were picked from home on camera. Many of my friends are in prison. Eddie Mutwe, Machete Yasin, young ladies like Olivia Lutaya, Doreen Kaija, Sauda Madada, name them. As we speak right now, there are young women that were picked, about 2 or so weeks ago, a young lady, a TikToker called Beauty, was picked from a funeral of the wife of our spokesperson, who passed away when he was in prison on the trumped-up cases. She was picked by the military. Up to now, we don't know where she is. So it gets tough. I'm not home. You know, we are scattered. My young family is elsewhere. I am here trying to advance the cause. It comes with a cost. But I can tell you, my sister, at the end of the day, that cost is worth it. Why? Because we know that freedom comes to those who fight, not to those who cry. Because the more we cry, the more our people continue to die. So we choose to fight because ain't no other way, you know. At least we know that when we don't give up, victory is imminent. More fierce evils have been overcome. Slavery was overcome. Colonialism was overcome. Apartheid was overcome. These were evils with more grounded forces and resources. Then what about dictatorships? Which dictatorships are actually empowered by democracies like America? So if we don't stop fighting, we will get there. I can only say, let's keep the hope alive. Let us not stop. Let us use every opportunity. Let us keep putting one foot in front of.
Let me tell you about my home. This is where Uncle Musa helps people build houses. Auntie Agnes grows food. Mommy says this house is almost 60 years. And families have lived here for years. Daddy helps people with their businesses. Me, I'm saving for that day I buy my own house.
Housing Finance Bank is home. For over 58 years, we've walked with you, creating opportunities, supporting businesses, transforming lives. Welcome home. Housing Finance Bank. We make it easy.
Of how much you can do more, you know, and maybe that will create a ripple effect. And before you know, we achieve what we must achieve. For as long as we don't stop, you know, let us not look at the threat, let us look at the prize. Thank you.
Yeah, so we are happy to have two more questions. I have actually my first PhD advisee here at the University of Michigan is also here. I would love to give the third opportunity to him. You have to, because his research is on music and politics in Nigeria. And so I'll give the third. So 2 plus his 3.
Okay.
Yeah, but briefly, go ahead.
Okay, thank you very much, His Excellency, and yeah, for all the insightful aspects that you have shared. I'm glad that you touched on the dictators of Africa, Mugabe's, obviously Museveni's, and many others established the frontline state. And of course, some well-respected statesmen like Kenneth Kaunda's, Julius Nyerere's, and many, Samora Machel's, and many others were quite progressive. So my question is, what's the game plan? Because definitely you do have your own youngsters of your own generation, the likes of Chamisa. I know you're quite close to Chamisa in Zimbabwe. And the same modus operandi, I think Uganda and Zimbabwe are quite twins in a way. When you talk about this politics of dictatorship, because whatever is happening in Uganda is what is happening in Zimbabwe right now, and constitutional changes, if I might be allowed to say, and many other atrocities, especially when it comes to human rights violation. So I understand that dismantling of colonialism came about due to international solidarity, regional solidarity, national solidarity, and of course the diaspora plays a very important role. So what's the game plan for you? Thank you.
Thank you. What's the game plan? Oh, man.
the other question. The next question.
I forgot to say I'm Janet Nakamwe, UMED Scholar, African Studies Center, based in South Africa. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Shakira. I'm from Uganda. My question is going to be brief. So, as we all know, not all of us, but Ugandans are here and back home, we know healthcare system is sucks. Last summer I got a chance to go back home and I was shadowing at Barat Referral Hospital where people die left and right. It was horrible. Yes, death is inevitable, but sometimes it can be avoided. But people couldn't afford 2,000 shillings, which is less than $1, to buy medical supplies. And this is supposed to be a government hospital. So my question to you, Mr. President, is, so I'm going to manifest. When you become the president or your party, which measures or policies or plans do you have for affordable and accessible healthcare for the people that can't afford it? Thank you.
And let's get Joshua's also at once, and then we probably do.
Okay, thank you so much for coming to speak with us. As you know, Charles said, I'm his PhD student, so Joshua Kurobo in the School of Music, Theater, and Dance. As an ethnomusicologist, but yeah, I have so many questions I'd love to ask you, but I will just ask one that's very simple. I know that you brought up this love of Bob Marley. You've been reading the works, that Charles has written on you and your kind of early political activism, even when it was over this, One Love Beach that became a very contested place. But I'm just wondering about, when thinking about popular music and reggae, for example, like where did that love of Bob Marley come from? Are there other reggae artists that you're inspired by? And how does, the work that they put in with their music, and of course their own sort of political trials and tribulations, how do those sorts of things inspire your own? Because of course Bob Marley was fighting this larger gang war in Jamaica, but I mean, that was kind of, that was overshadowed by what was this larger battle between, communism and, capitalism. And so I'm just wondering how some of these elements might come out in your musical work. And then if I could just add a quick one, I'm thinking about Fela Kuti, and, something similar happened between him and the military, right? Even I don't think he wasn't even really that politically inclined at the time, but he was saying things that, the military didn't like. And so, of course, they came to his home, they beat so many people, they threw his mother out the window, which she eventually succumbed to her injuries. But I'm wondering about, because he created Zombie after that one, and, it became very kind of, insulting to the military. I'm wondering if you have something like that, at least musically, that's cooking, to critique those that are in the military, and in what sort of way? Because when we think about these dictatorships or these military regimes, right, it's the military, right? It really, not to say that, of course, there's not one big man behind it, but it's the military, and there are individuals in that military that can hopefully have their heads turned. Not to say that we should be hoping for a coup over the return of democracy, but is there a way to inspire people? One to lead us. What does he even know about military conduct and whatnot? And if you have any sort of opinions about that.
Thank you. Interesting questions, and sadly it's the last batch of questions, but I hope that will communicate to you effectively. Now, the first sister asked, what is our game plan? Maybe I should attempt your question now. About the music, where I got the love of the music, of such, protest music, activist music, revolutionary music, and whether I am doing anything more of the same. Yes, I got inspired not only by Bob Marley. I mean, here I speak of Bob Marley because Bob Marley was more international. I wasn't sure people knew of people like Fela until you mentioned, glad you come from Nigeria. But people like Peter Tosh spoke truth to power. I mean, people like, without a doubt, Fela Anikulapo Kuti, amazing guy. He took so many beatings from the Nigerian military. And he spoke my mind then, he spoke my mind even before I was born, when he called them zombies. Because, I mean, these soldiers, if they're not zombies, what are they? There's a song that I sang and it was dedicated to soldiers. They said, Afande, I'm not fighting you, I am fighting for you. I am fighting for your children. Your children go to the same hospitals, sick hospitals as mine. Your wife will die giving birth, like many of our wives do die. You buy groceries from the same market. You know, the misrule affects you the same. But when they order you to beat me for speaking against what's wrong, for defending what is right, I don't understand you. For me, I get a little closer to these soldiers, and many of them, they came to me, and they tell me, Bobi, we are under capture. I mean, I was able to escape Uganda, because many of them disagree with what's going on. And many of them were sent to arrest me, but instead they gave me information that kept me safe. So these soldiers are also captive. There's somebody who wrote and said there are no bad soldiers, there are only bad commanders, and I agree with the writer. So it is the bad commanders. And indeed, in our effort to liberate Uganda and East Africa, we're not only liberating the people, we are liberating the soldiers and police officers too. And the first step for citizens is not to look at these police officers or military officers as enemies, but those that send them to brutalize their fellow citizens in order to keep the power of the few. Many of them, the Miriam Makebas, Eddie Grant, Hugh Masekela, you can name it. I know music is a very effective weapon against oppression. And like you heard, I introduced myself as an artist, as a musician, not as a politician. I would rather be known as an ordinary citizen. This will inspire them to know that them being ordinary citizens can actually also do what I'm doing or even better. So yes, I'm still doing music. And now that I have a little bit of safety and sanity, I'm going to hit studio again and wait for some vibes from me. Yeah. For those out there, follow me.
Me? I was raised to share. Mama would call the neighbors, jangle to the air. Even when the saucepan had just enough for us, she'd say, food tastes better when the table is full. My father, that one had a big heart. He'd lend out his pickup to everyone. Weddings, burials, you name it. He used to say, if it helps one person move, then it has done its job. We learnt earlier on, happiness doubles when you share it. So now,
I'm discouraging them. Because while most coups are vicious circles, at least we've seen in history a guy like Jerry Rawlings in Ghana that took over and handed power to civilian rule in his lifetime. So maybe, just maybe, there's some good soldiers. In the recent months or years, we were celebrating our brother Ibrahim Traore that took over power in a coup, although it keeps disappointing when He abolished the Electoral Commission, and now recently he discouraged democracy. And while I respect him, while he came in the image of the noble Thomas Sankara, who inspires even me to wear this beret, I disagree with anybody that rules over people without their mandate. I believe in servant leadership. I know it's popular, and I encourage, in fact, challenge my brother Ibrahim, my young brother Ibrahim Traore, as a popular artist, as a popular leader. Let him allow the people of Burkina Faso to elect him so he can be their servant, so we can know that he's serving the country with the mandate of the people. Short of that, he's not ruling over citizens, he's ruling over subjects. And no person should be a subject to any ruler. All leaders should lead in the interest and with the mandate of their people. And that can only be achieved when people vote for you and give you the mandate. People should always retain the power to appoint you and disappoint you, because Burkina Faso, like many other countries in Africa, do not produce only one person. There are many, so they should be able to elevate and bring down anybody depending on how she or he serves them. My sister from Uganda went to Mbarara. Mbarara is in Ankole. Mbarara is where Museveni comes from. My wife comes from Western Uganda. She's the same tribe with Museveni. And the rest of Ugandans actually have a false belief that the region where the president comes from is privileged and has facilities running, has good hospitals. Some actually tend to think that the Banyankole get tribal allowance. I'm so glad that you mentioned it, that under dictatorship, nobody is safe, not even where he or she comes from. You saw that people are so poor that they can die because of not having as low as less than $1. What is the plan? Once we change our country, the national corpus, the budget of the country, will not be focused on maintaining power, but serving the people. We are not reinventing the wheel, and like I've said in the past, I'm not claiming to be all-knowing, but I know that the intellectuals of the day, that so much money has been spent, so many workshops have been attended in the country and abroad, and solutions to terrible health care have been suggested. The countries like Kenya and Rwanda that have adopted them have improved their health care system, and our political elite go to those countries to get health care. I mean, many of our political elite, ministers and government officials, die from either Nairobi, Aga Khan Hospital or India. But the solution has been suggested in these beautiful proposals, these detailed documents. When you
3 shops, 0 results. But on Gigi, 1 search, seconds.
For these countries to improve their healthcare system and curb the maternal death, which, according to the Ministry of Health in Uganda, we lose 20 women every day during childbirth. Every day. They died yesterday, they have died today, or they will die by midnight, and they will die tomorrow. It has been like this, it is like this, and it will continue to be like this until it's changed. We lose 300 children every day to avoidable causes. They died yesterday, they have or will die by end of today. Tomorrow continues until it's changed. But the solution to that was to improve the healthcare budget to as low as 15% of the budget. But because that is not the priority, you know, they continue to die as we keep crying. So the solution is implementing these beautiful and life-changing, life-saving suggestions and proposals. And as president, those people will not have to die again. When I'm president of Uganda, we will improve the budget of our healthcare system. We will pay our doctors right. We presented it in our manifesto. We did a song when I still had the liberty to sing. And we said, no child is born to die and no mother should die giving birth. And as president, I will be very, very strict. And there will be a lot of questions if a single woman dies giving birth, because no mother should die giving life. Finally, the question to our sister was, what's the game plan? Man, I'm here to get ideas from you guys. But before that, there are two fronts. The first, generally, is not giving up, not stopping, and keeping on adopting all ideas that come. We, as the National Unity Platform, the party that I lead, we have put all legal, all constitutional, and all moral options on the table. I know that many of our friends have advocated to fighting back by any means necessary. While I'm not encouraging violence, I'm not discouraging it. I mean, we are encouraging non-violence because that's what we believe in. But every day, I lose justification to stop people that want to free themselves by any means necessary. So for me and my friends, we are non-violent, and we encourage non-violence because it is safe, it is moral, it is more powerful, and much as it is painful, it is the more guaranteed path of empowering an entire population, not empowering those that have the guns. So for us, we want to defeat the guns. But what English words do you want me to use to tell a guy whose wife has been raped, whose family has been killed by a person that is tweeting and chest stamping about it? What words do you want me to use? So not giving up is our first option. It continues to be constant. But now that I'm in America, we also have another front, a front which we know is very, very effective. We know that Idi Amin was empowered by the British and the international community. And when the British were done with Amin, Amin fell. The international community supported the apartheid regime in South Africa and even branded Nelson Mandela a terrorist. It was until a documentary about apartheid premiered in New York, and there were various Africans and friends of Africa from all walks of life, from all colors, all creeds, and all beliefs came together and marched against apartheid. Apartheid fell. So the wind beneath evil rulers and dictators is always in the democracies, and America is the world's biggest democracy. So we always come to them, and I'm here. And many times I've gone to the Capitol Hill, calling upon them, asking them to stand by the values that they profess. Yeah. Values of democracy, human rights, and the rule of law. And we've told them that we are not asking them to come and save us. We are asking them to stop sponsoring our operation. Yes. They gave Museveni up to $1 billion every year. A person that they know has been in power for 40 years. If there was a dictator that has been in power for 40 years in Europe, he or she would be treated like a leper. We have not seen any officials from the free world standing shoulder to shoulder with Europe's last dictator, Lukashenko from Belarus. Why then do they stand shoulder to shoulder with Museveni? Yes. Is the standard of democracy in Africa any less? Is the standard of human rights in Africa any less? If the standard of human rights and democracy in Africa is regarded less, that is nothing less than racism. So we ask them to stop sponsoring dictatorships in Africa, to stop doing business with renowned dictators as if they are dealing with legitimate leaders. And well, I'm trying to say this in a polite way because I don't want to be misunderstood. But look in history. When Idi Amin did what Museveni is doing, he was sanctioned, he was criticized. Those that are fighting against Idi Amin, even when they were fighting violently, they were supported. My sister from Liberia, when Charles Taylor did what Museveni is doing, he was sanctioned and even arrested. Why then is Museveni and his son not arrested, or at least sanctioned? In this time and era when they have, tools like targeted sanctions against human rights violators, when they have laws like the Global Magnitsky, they can evoke them. I am not ordering them. I'm just requesting them to be the big brothers of democracy that they claim to be. Yes. Thank you very much.
Power, power. People power. Everywhere. NUP.
All right.
For the purposes of keeping our memories, we're going to take a couple of pictures with the director.
Yeah, just the closing.
Okay, and then he's going to give us the closing remark first, and then we'll take a couple of pictures.
All right, thank you very much, Bobi Wine, and thanks, Charles, for moderating this panel. So the thing is, the story of Africa is the same, whether you are talking about the Sudan, you are talking about Nigeria, Burkina Faso, Equatorial Guinea, or wherever you turn to in Africa, the story seems to be that. The future of Africa also depends on building a democratic system that works for everyone, and the youth and people of Africa are the engine for building that democratic structure. Away from it today. So please let's thank Bobi Wine for and thank you to Charles for participating and of course without forgetting our colleagues who either work in Uganda or are from Uganda, particularly Derek Peterson. Other Ugandan colleagues, East African colleagues who are in the audience here. And also our staff at the African Studies Center and the Donia Human Rights Center, Hassan, and West, Thank you for putting this event together. We really appreciate your hard work in making it happen. So thanks to our wonderful audience. We didn't expect this much audience because students are almost gone from campus because our semester ended a few weeks ago. But we are happy that all of you made it to this event this afternoon. And we hope that when next we call on you, you will, as you always do, show up for African Studies Center. Thanks, everyone.
Okay, so all the members who wish, and they belong to the African Studies Center, you could take a picture here that would actually have on the website. I want to take one.
Get up there. Do it. I think
both of us. Okay, yeah, cool. Yeah, for the oh, okay. My mom
so I sent a picture. Asking my kids to do that.
The other way, the other way. All of you want.
We always recommend Shopify. It took us from an idea to a real business. We got set up, I think, in less than a day with very little effort, no prior experience needed. We could just focus on the supply chain and the product development. As we grow, Shopify gives us the ability to customize without the complexity. We can change something without introducing fragility or having to pay a developer. And as a startup, that's so valuable. We're Thirsty Turtle, and we leveled up our business with Shopify.